We're getting close to the end, guys. The defense has rested their case, but there was a little drama associated with it. Of course, right? Stay tuned. Hi, everybody. Welcome back to Crafting and Crime Daily. I'm your host, Rebecca, and I recap live trials. But this one's not live. I've told you that many times. The judge has not allowed cameras in the courtroom. This is the state of Indiana versus Richard Allen for the murders of Abby Williams and Liberty German back on February 13th of 2017. Very, very sad story. They were found murdered the next day. Their throats had been slashed. So, yesterday started out by some more line drama. So, what I've been telling you in the past, 24 people get into 24 seats for the public. They've now cut it down to 16. They've given the state more seats. They've given the defense some more seats. And I don't know if this is for closing argument purposes, but in any case, for the closing arguments today, only 16 people will be 16 members of the public. And that includes podcasters because they're not considered credentialed media, which is unfortunate because you're not getting much from the credentialed media on this thing. So, 16 spots. So, of course, people are lining up while trial is going on yesterday. People were lining up for today. Yeah. So I hope we can get one of the podcasters in there. Lawyer Lee, I hope you have a line sitter. Andrea, Lauren, one of you guys have got to get a line sitter into that line so we can get you guys in there. One or all of you. Because we need to know what the closings are. Oh my God, I hope to be a fly on the wall. I want to hear those closings. But let me tell you what happened first. So they show up for court yesterday, and the defense rests. What? We thought, that after the night before, there'd be, 2, 3 more witnesses. They could have rested the night before. They didn't. But I suspect it's because they wanted to think about it overnight. They wanted to maybe evaluate whether they needed more witnesses or not. So they decided they didn't. So they announced state rest. So now the defense rests. So now the state's scrambling because they want to put on a rebuttal, but their witnesses aren't there. They're like, our witnesses aren't here. I expect they didn't expect witnesses until later in the day or even tomorrow. But so the judge says, well, get them here. And then they start to go over jury instructions, which is fine. So they had a little charging conference, but nobody's leaving the courtroom. Everybody's watching this charging conference because they don't know when the case is going to start and the line is reforming. So they're already in there. They've got their seat. They don't want to lose it. Yeah, which is crazy. So the first witness that the state manages to get on is one that we'd already heard from during their case in chief, who somehow found a photograph that she took on Snapchat 7 years after the fact. I thought that stuff disappeared, that Snapchat stuff, but I know little to nothing about Snapchat. I can't talk about Snapchat, except you can take some cool photos with the filters. That's all I know. Anyway, unless she just saved it to her phone and then forgot about it. But she was one of the people that was on the Monon High Bridge, but her times were a little, she wasn't sure about the times. Well, this photograph was time-stamped, and it would have put her on the bridge during the time frame that Richard Allen was there, or said he was there, 1:30-ish. Okay, next witness. we know he was there. He said he was there. So the next witness is the Indiana State police officer Hallman, who had listened to all of those phone calls, and apparently the state had a company meeting, and they have decided they're not calling it solitary confinement anymore. We're going to call it a one-man cell. So now all their witnesses are using the term one-man cell as to oppose to solitary confinement. Like, what's the difference? Anyway, so of course this person is now he's talking about how he's now in a one-man cell. He went from a one-man cell to a one-man cell. It's the same thing, except the one-man cell that he's at now is in the jail, and he gets recreation time, and he has a desk and a TV and a bathroom, and might be a one-man cell, but has a lot more amenities than the other one-man cell that he was in for 13 months. He says, you know what? We don't call it solitary confinement. That connotes punishment. He wasn't being punished. He was there for safekeeping from the other inmates. Did he get threatened that we don't know about? I don't know. Anyway, the reason they had this guy on is because they want so bad. They have a video of him acting out at the place where he's at now, the jail. And they tried before to get it into evidence, and the judge sustained the objection by the defense and said, no, that video is not coming in. I don't remember what the objection was, but rumor has it that what happened that day is he found out that his wife and mother had been removed from his call list, and he was really upset. And so he just kind of lost it. So once again, they want to play this video. The jury doesn't know what's on this video. I'm just telling you what the rumor is. Jury hasn't heard anything, but there's this video. And once again, it was objected to, didn't come in. Good. Next witness, Dr. Martin, a psychiatrist, the psychiatrist for this Westfield facility. He was there from November 22 to November of 23. So Richard Allen was one of his patients while he was in the one-man cell. So when he came into they went over his background and education, and Dr. Martin is actually Indian and studied in another country. He did not get a medical degree in this country. But he came over, and he's been in sort of the prison system for quite some time. Apparently, he went to Florida to practice, and in Florida, he was in charge of the solitary confinement unit, and he's now involved in a lawsuit with respect to that solitary confinement, and I think he lost his job over it. I'd love to know the details of that. Anyway, but we don't get to know what they are. Anyway, so he talks about when Richard Allen came through. He did... I don't know what he did. He says he did an evaluation. I don't think he did an evaluation. I think he just brought him in and said, hey, how are you? What, how psychiatrists are. Well, maybe don't. They're just there to provide the medication. How are you feeling? Are you thinking about hurting yourself? Thinking about hurting anybody else? Are you seeing anything, hearing anything? That's your evaluation. And it takes about 5 seconds to answer those questions. So he said he came in, he's on Prozac for a major depressive disorder. So he thought, well, he's stable on the Prozac. We're going to leave him on the Prozac. And he too reiterated that the solitary confinement has a negative, a punishment connotation. So for the total duration of the 13 months that Richard Allen is in the one-man cell at Westfield, he was seen by the psychiatrist 18 times, and not always in a therapeutic setting. and to me, to be honest, there's no such thing as a therapeutic setting with a psychiatrist. They're just there to do medication management. That's it. You're not going to get your therapy through a psychiatrist. You're going to get it through the psychologist. Um, but so some of those visits were like, hey, how you doing? Oh, hey, Rich, how you doing? You doing okay? Okay. No, that kind of visit. Uh, so we saw him on November 8th, and at that time he was stable, and that was the first time. He had a stable, and it was a history of depression and anxiety. Saw him on November 29th, and again on January 24th. In both cases, he was fine. He's fine on his Prozac. So on April 13th, now on January 24th, the plan for someone who's stable, for a psychiatrist, I have depression and anxiety, so I go every 3 months. So, and that's usually the routine for someone that's stable, because you can only get your prescriptions filled for 90 days. So, he was supposed to see him again in 3 months, and he didn't. January, February, March, we're now in April. So April 13th, he has this unplanned visit to, he gets called over to the one-man cell. Richard is naked on a mattress. He had brownish fluid coming out of his mouth and had reportedly been eating his own feces. He was just covered in filth. So he had him showered and brought to him. And he diagnosed him as psychotic. So he talked about how they're really big on consent for medication. You got to get the patient's consent, the prisoner's consent. But in this case, he was so psychotic, they could not get his consent. So what they did was he called another company meeting. He called the regional psychiatrist that he reports to. It's a group of people. And they have this little meeting, and they authorize him to give medication without consent. Now, he talked about how Haldol comes in 3 forms. There's a pill form, there's a short-acting shot that you can give, and then there's a long-acting one. I did not know this. And it's supposed to last up to 30 days. So because of the dosage that the long-acting one comes in, he was afraid to give that to him off the bat. So he gives him a smaller dose of the Haldol for like the first, I don't know. I don't know what the time frame was, but he starts him out with a smaller dose. And after he didn't have any adverse reactions to that, then he gave him the larger dose. I'm trying to read my writing. Okay, I told you about that already. So by the end of May, he was improving. Fine now. He's fine. He sees him again in June 16th. He's fine, but they're still giving him Haldol. He got another dose on June 16th. If he's fine, why are you still giving him involuntary medication? I thought you were really big on consent. So the state didn't make much headway with this guy. I don't think the last few witnesses were that impactful, so to speak. So this is now going to go to the jury. They'll come in this morning for closing arguments. We'll see who gets into the courtroom, who doesn't. As soon as those are available to report, I'll listen. I'll bring you what happened during the closings, but this is going to get to a jury probably this afternoon. The closings, the judge has said, will be limited to 2 to 2.5 hours per side. So that's 5 hours of closing. So that's the whole day, the entire day. Plus, you got to read the jury instructions and, dismiss the alternate. So they'll get it later this evening. To start deliberating. And this is not a situation where, you can go back and come home and start tomorrow, because these guys are sequestered. They're going to want to start deliberating and get this thing over with. Now, I don't think my opinion of this case has been any secret. I think this guy was railroaded. I think he never should have been charged with this crime. They didn't have enough evidence sufficient to get over that beyond the reasonable doubt hurdle. And I would be shocked if there was a guilty verdict in this case. Not that I believe he's not guilty. I think they haven't proved beyond a reasonable doubt. I have lots of doubts. What about Brad Weber? What about these other people we didn't even hear about? There's a guy named Keegan, and there's all the false confessions. How do you convict somebody on that? How do you convict somebody on this little bit of evidence? The gun, the bullet, the unfired cartridge matches a fired cartridge from Richard's gun. Now, we've had experts say that the markings were insufficient to compare them. There was insufficient markings to even compare those two. And you shouldn't be comparing them to begin with. That's like comparing apples to kumquats or apples to oranges. You want to compare apples to apples, and you want to do it more than once. That's their evidence. That's it. So I don't think it's going to be a long deliberation. I think they've seen enough. They've heard enough. It's all they've had to think about now for 3 weeks in their hotel room in the evenings. So I'll bring you the result of that as soon as possible. I have another new case I'm going to start today. It does involve a small child, but it's an interesting case and a lesson to be learned from the case. So I'll see you in that video. If not, I'll be live on Sunday. What's today? It's only Thursday. Oh my gosh, it's only Thursday. Okay, back to painting. Take care, everybody. Bye.